If you happy, your heart is down. I'll give you all of my love. Believe me, you won't forget you.
And we are live. Welcome to the Renegade podcast. I'm your host, the Dashing Rogue, and I'm with my frequent sidekick, Artistic Layman.
Good morning, terrifying fantasy world.
Good morning.
Before you know it, we might actually have to just say good morning, terrifying world, because this world is it's going down the shitter. I won't lie to you guys. It's getting bad out there. And you might be asking why the tonal change. Two reasons. One, I have an apartment. I live in an apartments complex, and my neighbor gave me a noise complaint. So I had to be very nice and accommodating for someone else's fifis. So, I mean, again, I do the same thing for them. I just don't like being told what to do. But, yeah. Other than that, that was Macross 8299 with Yi Bi Su. It was the Young Babe edit. That's Young Babe's spelt with Y-U-N-G. Bae as B-A-E, like, the shit in Danish. But be that as it may, I actually like a lot of the newer, future funk work, if that makes any sense. It's not exactly newer, just remixed. But yeah, welcome everyone. So today's the reason we named this podcast Might, Magic, and Sophistry is because I received something from Luke. Luke, you sent me that letter of that I guess it's a black activist. How should you say it? Pamphlet.
It's one of the latest best-selling books for racism. It's How to Be an Anti-Racist.
Yeah, we're going to be dissecting that. That's the sophistry part of this.
You just need to look at the first chapter and its first definition to know the sophistry, my friends.
Oh, dude. Okay, so do you have a copy of that still?
Yeah, somewhere in here.
Okay, because I want to show this to people. I want to show people because I get accused of hating on academia, which I do. I think academia is ideological cancer for people who put themselves up by the bootstraps and autodidacts and such as myself. I personally am of the opinion that these people, good morning, by the way, Wolf Wind Prepper. It's still Sunday over here. I don't know where you are. I think you're like in Germany or East Germany or Eastern Europe. I know there are a lot of people. Hello, Holy Mystic as well. But yeah, let me send out the tweet real quick, and we'll get into the sophistry.
Yeah, this is what we're talking about. How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi.
And I would like to show a little bit of that. This will be sort of a micro review, if you will. Now, I don't know much, but I know that I'm not an academic. I actually despise the term academic simply because it's a hierarchy based on authority, not based on truth. Oftentimes, my main issue is if you're not speaking the truth, what are you speaking? One of the things that I noticed, at least in this particular book, was the notion of, dare I say, if we look at the definitions, can you pull up the definitions real quick?
I'm not sure if I'm allowed to show them because they're books, but would you want me to show them anyway?
Oh, dude, it doesn't matter. This is the equivalent because it's on sale, right?
Oh yeah.
It's on sale on Amazon, I assume, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is more of a book review. For those of you out there who want to see how bad this book is or how good this book is, this is your choice. Now, the definition chapters is from the purely grammar perspective, the whole trivium perspective.
Yeah, every single chapter has its own definitions on a particular subject, but this is the most important definition.
A racist is one who is supporting a racist policy. See, there's your problem right there. See, it's circular logic right there. You can't define racist by using racist. You can't do that. That's not.
It's like saying a racist is a racist. Well, okay, but what is a racist?
It
will tell us further if we go further in the chapter.
If you say for example, if I were to define a dog is a canine. A canine is wolves, but also dogs, and I would say certain other animals are canines as well. But it goes on, and they continue defining definitions. Anti-racist. I want to go up a bit more. I want to continue reading this stuff. But again, we're not going to be too deep into this. But I really want this to look at the particular definitions where they just start linking stuff. They start linking hyperlinks in this book that you're supposed to buy. None of them are archived. Some of them don't even exist. They don't click to anything.
Well, it's a book, so.
Well, it's a book, but here's the thing: you're supposed to archive your stuff. How do I know that? Like I bring this up because if any of you remember, I believe it was the Reddit Revolt. Who here remembers what the Reddit Revolt is? Do you know what that is, Luke?
Reddit Revolt. What was that again?
That was because of Chairman Pao. Pao was she was a female of, I think she was either Vietnamese or Chinese or what have you. And she became the CEO of Reddit, where she started, taking down information about things that she didn't like. So, for example, she thought that certain things were racist subreddits. She wanted to shut them down. Things that were fat shaming, shut it down. It got to the point where the heuristics they were using defined, what was considered racist, what was considered sexist, started bleeding into things that were never ever intended to be racist. Redhead appreciation, whale watching. Legitimate, like watching whales, like you're going out onto the ocean and you're like watching Moby Dick. That was considered a bannable offense. They shut that Reddit down. So then what happened was they started writing articles about how there's nothing wrong, nothing's happening here, and then they find out, oh yeah, there actually is something wrong. This woman is ideologically motivated. And so what happens is that the articles that were calling her out for this, they retracted without any evidence what happened. It sort of went into the memory hole. They were 80% of an article. When you do edits, like let's say if we talk about what happened with George Floyd, and you were trying to accurately represent what happened with George Floyd, you addend and you say, hey, this has changed. This has changed. We changed this for clarity. We changed this because this is factually false. You don't get to do that. If you have to do 80% of an article over again, you write another article. You don't just, get rid of 80%, change it, and then never, ever tell people what the original state of the article was. This is the reason why the guy who linked a bunch of links, he never archived anything. So if I go to an article and that article, defines racism as, something more objective, and racism, not power plus privilege, but racism in the sense of hating someone strictly on their race, or thinking that one race is superior to another in all topics. We're not going to get into the whole sickle cell anemia versus the benefits of, let's say, having a certain let's say the Asian or Oriental eyes, let's say, because of deserts and Mongolia and what have you. You got to have protection from the sun to a certain degree. We're not going to get into that. They're just talking about racism in the sense of power plus privilege and all this other junk. But if they change that around, if they link those things without any connection, do you have the links shown up there on that chapter? Can you get to the links, the hyperlinks? That's the one I saw.
I have no idea.
Just keep going through it. Just keep scrolling through it.
Link.
But yeah, I mean, the biggest issue here is that these people, again, they do not link anything. They don't link anything. And again, this is not there we go. We'll keep going down a bit more. Almost there.
Definitions.
Yeah, I looked at definitions because, again, there you go. There's your definitions. Skinner is growing famous. This is not how you do it. This is not how you do a article. I'm sorry, you don't do this. Because the Black Aesthetic, that's something I would look into. This is the landmark book, The Black Aesthetic, by Garden City, New York, 1974. Link me, what is it, the ISBN number, which is basically a universal number used in the West for what publishing you're talking about. Because depending on what publishing, you may very well get the incorrect pages. You might have the right argument, but the pages are different because it's a different printing. He doesn't do that. Some of these things, like let's say ChristianToday.com, 1996, that very well could be archived, but also it could have been changed. It may not be publicly accessible. So then we have to go behind a paywall to find out what they're talking about. All this information should be condensed into the book. It should not necessarily be here by itself. And all that, look at all that. Let's see, going down. Let me, hold on. Just inequalitystanford.edu. Yeah, that can very well be gone. You have to back that stuff up with evidence, because none of the shit that they have, there's no evidence here. It's just a bunch of.
Well, it's all anecdotal. The whole book, if you read it, it's just every chapter is hit with his anecdotal experiences, and then he talks about the application of the definitions, which of course are circular, as we've pointed out. How a racist is one who's supporting a racist policy through their actions or inactions or expressing a racist idea. That still doesn't
define what racism is.
And
are we talking?
It goes further. If you want to know what a policy is, if you go further, it is a. And by policy, I mean the written and unwritten laws, rules, procedures, processes, regulations, and guidelines that govern people. So anything
now,
that people do.
And to show how bad this is, what we're doing right now is we're chasing spooks. We are literally chasing spooks, geists, ghosts and goblins.
Witch hunting.
Yeah, it's witch hunting. We know that spooks exist, and we have to hunt them down and lynch them, don't we?
Let's see. Here's another definition we can find.
And then, of course, and again, you didn't define what a spook is. You don't define what the trait of a spook is. And so when I go to UrbanDictionary.com and go do this, ladies and gentlemen. This is why we define our terminology. You go to UrbanDictionary.com and type in spook. What is a spook? Spook could be governments, G-men, espionage. And if we go into the I believe it's a derogatory slur for a person of African American descent. So when I talk about lynching these evil racist spooks that don't exist, or that are so corporeal with their definition that anyone could be a spook at any time, including blacks, at what point do we start saying, this is what we're talking about versus this what we're talking about? If you go down a bit more, I think it's the second definition, I believe.
I only see.
Keep scrolling down to spook.
Spook. I just get authoritarian next.
Let me link it to you then. I shall link it to you. Give me 1 second. It's the second definition. Yeah, keep going, scrolling. Keep scrolling.
That's it.
Let me link it to you, dude. Give me 1 second. But in any case, this is the reason why we have to define our terminology. If you go scroll to the second, keep scrolling down. I don't know if you're getting the different definitions that I am, but it's one that has 4,463 uploads. Yeah. So I don't define what spook is. Neither does he. And I'm using spook interchangeably here. I'm playing linguistic, games. I admit that I'm doing that, but I'm trying to do it to show people why you define your terms. He literally is doing recursive, a racist is someone who holds racist policies. Well, what is a racist policy? Is me wanting to date a redhead considered racist? Is me having, yellow fever wanting to date Asians? Is that racist? At what point is my personal preference considered a bad thing or a good thing? At what point do I get this? Do I get to choose? At what point is my personal preference between, I don't know, God, I don't want to get too deep into the whole racist thing, but at what point is my preference between Coke and Pepsi considered racist? Because, Coke, they take advantage of, third worlders and what have you. At what point is my brand allegiance, like let's say I buy, NVIDIA versus Sony, because, Sony's helping Black Lives Matter. I don't know about NVIDIA, but
here's one. Assimilationist, one who is expressing the racist idea that a racial group is culturally or behaviorally inferior to and is supporting cultural and behavioral enrichment programs to develop that racial group.
Okay,
what?
Okay, hold on. Assimilationist, one who's expressing a racist idea that a racial group is culturally or behaviorally inferior and is supporting the culture or behavior enrichment programs to develop that racial group. What? No. Assimilation is when you decide to become an American. If I go to Romania, if I go to Germany or Russia, I'm going to start speaking Russian. I'm going to speak Romanian, and I'm going to speak, I'll speak the native tongue. That's not a bad thing. In fact, I'll show you an example of a perfect assimilation story. Have you ever heard of the CEO of Sriracha? The guy
No.
who so Sriracha. Besides Sriracha CEO. Do you know anything about him?
No, I do not. These
Let me
definitions
see if I
still overwhelm me.
Well, no, let me link this to you. This will, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, the link will be in the description. The guy who created the sriracha hot sauce that you see oftentimes in what do you call it, the stores and the what have you, the sriracha hot sauce people. The guy who invented it, he's a Vietnamese refugee. He came off the boat. He named his I think his company, his farm, after the boat he got off of. This guy's an American dream. This guy's an American example. He legitimately, he made a product. He picked himself by his bootstraps, and he, got ahead. This guy is doing very well for himself. He's very thankful. This is an exemplary example of assimilation. This guy learned the language. He, even like before, he was getting complaints from like the neighboring town because he was, making so much freaking hot sauce that it was affecting the air and the pollution around his company, around his people, around the town. And they were it got to the point where it's like pepper spray all the time around the town, around the factory, because he's building hot sauce. But this guy, he's a success story. I wish everybody who came to the United States would act like this. I wish everybody would, try to do what they would try to do and make their way in the world the way this guy did. This guy literally picked himself by his bootstraps. This is an American classic right here. I will gladly buy a beer from this guy any day. Now, going back to the whole definitions that we're going to go for today, can we take a look into the let's look at back to the book. Yeah, because this guy, I will buy this man a beer any day. But he's somebody who I legitimately have. Like, I don't eat sriracha, but I'm definitely picking up a bottle when next paycheck comes. Back to the professional victim. All right, so dueling consciousness.
Yeah, now a segregationist, one who is expressing the racist idea that a permanently inferior racial group can never be developed, and is supporting policy that segregates away the racial group. What? Okay. And then we have the anti-racist
for racism, by the way.
Yeah,
we still don't have that.
Oh no, we never will either. But then we have the anti-racist, one who is expressing the idea that racial groups are equals and that none needs developing, and is supporting policy that reduces racial inequality. And here's where it comes into play. This person actively believes that any disparity is an expression of injustice, and that the only reason why there's disparity is because there's a deliberate active corruption.
It sounds exactly like Theodore Adorno type of shit. It feels
probably,
like
it probably is.
Can you do a F5, like Control F, and see if you can find Theodore Adorno or any of the other?
Not in this format. No.
Oh, damn! It'd be awesome if we could fucking do that. I guarantee you're gonna have Max Horkheimer or what the hell's his name, Herbert Marcuse, or one of the other Frankfurt School retards showing their face.
I'll take a
big
look
ugly face.
I'll take a look to see if I can skim it.
So anyway, anti-racist. Anyone who's expressing the idea that racial groups are equal and none. Well, I hate to be the guy who says this, but I'm not an anti-racist because I acknowledge that sickle cell anemia is a distinctly black problem, disproportionately speaking. And does that make me a racist now? Because I acknowledge the biological reality that let's say if you're a socialist, you want to implement universal health care, you got to live by natural law. You have to the moment you deny that, say certain ethnic minorities have, a certain, say, a biological defect or, a certain condition like sickle cell anemia, is the moment you basically, oh God, what I was going to say, you deprive them of the right to live. You're hurting them in a lot of ways because you're not acknowledging the fact that they have this. And if you sweep it under the rug under the name of equality, you're doing them a disservice. And that would be a violation, dare I say, of your Hippocratic oath.
Every other pay click is either Washington Post or the New York Times article.
Which, again, they're using. Like, let me ask you this: Can you click on some of them? And what are they
No, I can't.
commentaries?
There are no clicks. They're just he's just talking about certain quotes from certain websites. Like he's even quoting a line from Richard Spencer for some reason.
Well, Richard Spenny, let me just say this about Spenny. Spenny is a man who builds up infrastructure, but he's not exactly the smartest person in the world. He's more of a, how do I say it? He thinks that because he tells the truth, at least like in what he believes, if he thinks that's going to save him, like if he just says, you know what, I'm a racist, what of it? Then that's going to somehow win the crowd. No, it's not going to win the crowd. What is going to win the crowd is actually having policies that people can act upon, and they'll know within, the first 3 months of your presidency or your candidacy that you can enact these votes, you can enact these policies, you can enact this system or whatever you might want to have. So, like, people voted for Donald Trump because he was going to end H-1B visas. He was also going to end, I believe, he was going to build the wall. Those are things we could trust. We don't have a wall just yet. We're building we're reinforcing the fence or what have you at certain areas that that need to be defended because they're close to civilization and people can just hop the wall, get over and find a place. But they're not going to wall off the entire desert. They're going to instead probably have I don't know what they'd have. But the point is that those things are actionable and we can all act upon them. But yeah, that's the sophistry part. We're going to continue with this whole thing. We're going to talk about might. So what is might? Well, might is another word for power. And power ain't what you have, but it's also what people think you have. So one of the things that I noticed is that our good friend Matt Forney, he was basically going on about how there's a lot of these occultists and what have you operating in the he was saying that the Black Sun was basically the Blackout Tuesday was people showing their allegiance to the not just to the communists but to the cult of Saturn. And I told him no, you got it. It's too broad of a stroke to make. You have to understand what you're dealing with. So, for example, this is from Andy No's tweet. Portland police are asking for help in identifying a suspect who assaulted and severely injured a homeless person during the riot on May 30th. So this person is a black bloc individual. They are anarchists. Now, let us do a sort of let's do a little challenge. Luke, identify some of those symbols. What if I this will be a test for you. What symbols is he wearing? On this sweater.
Let's see. Well, one I recognize as that image for the cross with the upturned arms, which is usually used by white nationalists.
Yes, that means that's usually used to represent folk or people. It represents nation. It represents breeding. It represents breed, I believe. Then if you look at it from the other perspectives, you have the Star of Thelema. That means he has more in common with Augustus Sol Invictus and Aleister Crowley. Then if you look, I believe it's to the right, the upper right, that's the sigil of Saturn, right? Upper right, over here, left. It's on the back. The cross, yeah, that's the sigil of Saturn, but it's but it's not the kind that you would have seen outside of, let's say, a Blue Oyster Cult concert. Then you have on the other side to the left, you have the sigil of sulfur, the alchemical sigil of sulfur, which is oftentimes associated with the devil. And combine the fact that you're dealing with a guy with a goat on the back of the guy's head, or the back of his sweater, that would probably mean the guy's either a spiritual leftist, or a Satanist, or a follower of Thelema, but they're all on the spiritual left. So this guy, you can know this guy is the type of guy who will abuse any means of power you'll give him. He will abuse the law. He will not follow contracts unless he absolutely has to, because do what thou wilt should be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will. And if you love, doing whatever the hell you want because you're an egotist and a spiritual leftist, this is all par for the course. But, again, it's not, people are hunting for him. and people are pretty woke to what the hell's going on. But another example of might, and again, this will be more of a clip show. This is something that people were going to talk about. They were talking about how if Black Lives really mattered, why did a police captain David Dorn, may God rest in peace, he was a retired captain. And this is from Royce Lopez.
TVs, cuz.
That's sad.
They killed a retired police officer. Hey, at least he retired. He wasn't like 5 days towards retirement, like the archetypical cop saying when they die. And I don't mean to be a guy who laughs at him. This is really fucked up, and it's getting worse and worse out there as we speak. Truth be told is that I feel for this guy, but at the same time, there's just, I don't know why it's always the old guys, the old farts that sacrifice themselves so the young can live. And this guy, again, he was basically, mugged and practically killed because he was trying to stop one of his communal stores from being looted. He was trying to protect the innocent. So God rest your peace, my friend. I'll drop a little bit of vodka on the floor for you, my friend.
Black lives matter.
They do, but not any more than anybody else's.
Let's find out.
In any case, let's move down. Oh, yeah.
Are killed by other black people. But those black lives don't matter to Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter activists are instead protesting aggressive police methods, sometimes lumped under the rubric broken windows policing, which have almost certainly saved thousands of black lives that don't matter to Black Lives Matter.
I hate to be the guy who says this, Mr. Prager. That's Prager, right? Prager, you?
Clavin.
What?
Andrew Clavin.
Yeah, Andrew, I like you. I respect you. But the truth be told is you can't play these rhetoric games with them. Like you and I both, like people like you and me, we know that these people are sophists. They don't define their terms. And the easiest way to manipulate their terminology is to basically show them that their ideas and their definitions are too broad. And then you slowly, like a game of Fortnite, let the eye of the storm get bigger and bigger and slower and slower, and to the point where they have no choice but to acknowledge reality. That's how you beat them. You have to play the game, though. And certain people play the game, but here's the thing. Clavin is correct about a lot of this, these police, because there's a lot of police shit that's going on. There's a lot of police brutality going on. Case in point. Do you know what mad dogging is?
No.
Pull up, I believe it was a urbandictionary.com. If you type in mad dogging, and those. Now, I want to let people know I don't hate the police. Mad dogging, top definition, staring as though you are crazy, threatening glance. That's what mad dogging is. This particular officer, this particular instance of an issue that was brought to my attention. Let's see if I can play it here. Desert Hot Springs police officer under investigation over controversial video will no longer be with the police department. I'll tell you this. There are a lot of officers out there who think it's more important to maintain dominance than maintaining dominance, like of authority. Like, don't get me wrong, I will mouth off to a cop anytime. He is not entitled to that level of authority. I will tell him he's an idiot. I will tell him he's stupid. I will tell him he's acting dumb. He's acting a fool. And I do it because I trust him with telling the truth. I don't hate the police. I have ambivalence towards the police. There's a difference. But when police officers do this type of shit, this is the shit that makes me think to myself, I am chaotic good and chaotic. I skirt chaotic neutral sometimes. This gentleman right here, you could play the clip, by the way, Luke. You'll see why.
You haven't seen harassment yet. Well, apparently this is harassment if you're standing in front of my face like that. You haven't seen it. That's some real harassment right there, bro. Record this, bro. Go ahead. Why are you harassing me? What am I doing to you? Because I looked your direction? Sit there. Because I looked your direction. No one's moving. No one's moving. I never moved any direction. Well, then stop. What are you coming at me for? I looked that direction. Who's touching you? Who's touching you? You're in front of me. You're in my personal space. What do you mean? Touching? Yes, I do.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that angle. Look at that angle.
What is this?
Look at that angle. Look at that angle. You see, the guy is literally in his. I mean, they're about to have sex and kiss, for fuck's sake. I'm not kidding. Defining their Wolfwood Prepper says defining their authority pisses them off more than anything. Yeah, and I'll tell them, well, you're not the end all authority. You're just an avatar of authority. You're an avatar of order and law. And the problem is you aren't the law. You're not Judge Dredd. You're not Judge, Jury, and Executioner. You're not, no matter how much you want to be. And this type of shit. Look at the fucking angle. The guy has to sit down like he's gonna, fuck the cop. Like he's gonna, what the hell is it called? The standing position, I guess it is. I don't know the positions. I'm still innocent, and I know Luke is more innocent than I am. But again, it's like they're about to kiss, for fuck's sake. And of course, the guy has his hands crossed. And I'll just say it: if this cop was legitimately scared of this guy, he could just pull a knife out, from that position and stab the cop. I mean, there is legitimately no reason for this cop to do it. But keep playing it. Keep playing the clip.
Personal space. What do you mean I have no personal space? Keep mad dogging me. No one's mad dogging you. They're looking your direction. If you don't know what that is, then you need to fucking go black classes, retard. Excuse me? You heard me. Turn around. For what?
No.
Turn around. Turn around.
You were like a fool.
I don't know. Turn around. What am I getting arrested for? Turn around. What am I getting arrested for?
For what, officer?
Hey, what am I doing?
No. Don't turn around. Don't turn around. Don't turn around. Don't turn around. Seriously, don't turn around.
All right, yeah. Crime is happening. Okay.
Yeah, he's no longer with the police department, but I want to say this: the Blue Lives Matter people have a very, very specific point that they like to say. Oh, it's hard work. It's hard work. Yes, it is hard work. That doesn't give you the right to be sloppy with your work. And I'll tell you, I've talked to former police officers. They talk about the life expectancy of officers who survive going through training, going through the crap that they go through, the ability for police officers to have a good life combined with the lifestyle of being a police officer is next to none. The constant adrenaline dumps of oh my God, this one particular traffic stop versus this next traffic stop. Guy could pull a gun. Guy could drive off and run over his foot. There's a lot of things that can happen. And I'll tell you, it's a very high intense job. Combine that with the fact that they do hours that are that of a crime fighting vampire, on top of the fact that they also, do pretty much they basically are living a lifestyle that will guarantee you that you will die young. You won't live past your 40s at that rate that you're doing. This is the reason why I say, if you ever want to go after the cops, go after their pension. That pension keeps them alive. On life support, granted, they're not living like kings, but they sure as shit ain't gonna, they will live, for those who don't have the right to terminate their own life. But this type of crap that the cops are doing, the whole reason he called him a retard was because he was acting retarded. Stupid is as stupid does, as they say. The cop can't handle that. He can't handle some little punk telling him what's what, even if it is true. By the way, again, we don't know the whole context for this. So I will give a little bit of benefit of the doubt to the officer simply because we don't have the whole context. However, there's no reason for him to get into that angle that close to that kid. Okay. And even then, he's a kid. Who gives a fuck? Who cares what the little punk thinks? But, things like that are an example of might. Another example of might, for those of you out there who are still watching, by the way, share, and subscribe. This is a good podcast. I think it's pretty good, at least. Another example of might would be, dare I say, well, I don't know if we're going to go into that just yet. Well, this is what happened in Fairfield, California, as of late. Have you seen this before, Luke?
I have not seen anything.
Well, this is from Black Pilled by Devin Stack. If you want to know who Devin Stack is, you could follow him on YouTube as well as how should I say it, Instagram. I got this from Instagram because a lot of his stuff is on Instagram.
Yes, this I have seen.
This is in Fairfield, California. This is I've been there before. Been there a couple times. Fairfield, I believe Fairfield is north of me. I'm not entirely certain if it's north of me or south of me. But I know that it's a majority. It's basically a town where there are a lot of migrant farmers. It's part of the farming belt of California. So it's a majority, I believe, Latin American, Mexican, as well as, it's more in the boonies. It's out there away from Silicon Valley. So play the clip, please.
Don't catch you slipping now. Look what I'm whipping now. This is America. Don't catch you slipping now. Don't catch you slipping now.
I hope they get flagged. I hope they get copyright flagged for that song. Because I'll tell you, this is not America. This isn't even fucking Mexico. This is anarchy. This is the world that Ancapistan wants. This is the world that the communists want. This is that, like, I don't even know how the hell did they get their hands on a freaking crane. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. You have to know how to drive those things. It's not like a car where you could just move forward. Some of those wheels, like I think it's like the wheel in the back, I believe, that's how you turn. The wheel in the front is stable specifically so that you when you drive in such a way that it gives stability for what you're lifting. You have to turn with your back wheel, not the front wheel. So yeah, the world is falling apart. And what doesn't help in this whole scenario is when you have people such as, let's see if I could do this. When you have, riots going on over in my own hometown. I mean, the last few days here in California, I've been documenting what's been going on with the George Floyd protests. These fucking again, the thing that ticks me off about this is that our good old mayor, and his sheriff, his pet sheriff, because let's be frank, the guy doesn't have a single freaking leg to stand on because he bent the freaking knee. The sheriff is the only one that actually makes sense, but the mayor bent the knee to the protesters. So now I guess you could say we're occupied because now at the beginning of the beginning of the week, we had about 200 protesters. At the end of the week, we had about 800 to about 1,000 protesters. And again, this is everywhere. This is happening everywhere. And I heard Forney talk about how this is the CIA. I don't believe it's the CIA. I think it is the Russians and the Chinese, because keep in mind the Chinese are acting really weird, and the Russians, well, they already have an entire they both have a water army. They both have a propaganda arm where they have paid shills. We talked about this. I guarantee you, when you start seeing, I believe, African-American gentlemen calling out saying, hey, why are there bricks in front of the city hall? Why are there's no construction anywhere? You gotta do better. You gotta do better, right? This is all staged. I hate to be the guy who says this, but the people who are in Black Lives Matter, if I could tell you just for a second, you're being played. Look at who is funding your corporation. Look who's funding your campaign. And then ask yourself, what the fuck do you think they get out of it? We were talking about how, racism is not well defined in any of that book. Well, at what point is racism just another buzzword for rabbit abba ding dong or give peace a chance? Racism has become such a weird word, and I guarantee you, I had to unfollow a lot of Instagram thoughts because they were kept putting up their support for BLM, even though BLM has made this whole thing about the whole discussion about police brutality and cop reform. They made it about race, despite the fact that I believe police are more likely to attack a white guy than they are to attack, let's say, a black guy. And I guarantee you, because you don't ever hear about it, because most white people just go along to get along. They don't want any trouble. It's only the African American youth, the men, who are willing to stand up against it. I think it was Royce and Mersch on Revenge of the Sis. They stated that the biggest problem the biggest two gangs in our country are the police, the white police officers versus the black teenagers. They are the biggest fighters in our country. And honestly, I kind of agree with them. I know he's just, it's a bit of a satire to a certain degree, and it's not exactly an apples to apples comparison to what we're seeing, but he's kind of right. You know, they're the only people who interact with each other on a daily freaking basis to I guess to the detriment of society, I would say.
Peace is not on offer to the rest of us except at a price that is unacceptable. The price of submission to the Islamists who increasingly dominate their fellow Muslims across the globe.
Yeah.
One of the...
Keep playing.
That's it. There is more to it, but this was a result of the slaughter that happened in...
terrorists told onlookers he had committed his carnage because he wanted to bring our troops back so we can all live in peace. Our troops? He had just butchered one of them. That is not only murder, that is treason.
Well said, mate. Well fucking said, mate. Top of the morning to you. God, it's, you know, again, I have nothing against the British, but they are so fucking cute when with their little accents. Any case.
What's this?
So yeah, this is a picture, I believe, of. Let's see if I have. Do I have it for you?
Of unity at peaceful George Floyd protests.
Yep. And I believe if we go down, let's see if I have it here. Where is it? Oh yes, this is. Let's see if I can find it. Moments of peace. I'm trying to find out where I got. Zoomer.
Stand up for equality while they're all kneeling.
Yep.
That makes no sense.
Yeah. And by the way, nobody here better take a knee. None of you better take a knee. I'm serious about that. This is Zelensky-esque tactics. They want you to take a knee, and then they'll contextualize it as saying, "You took a knee for racism. Why aren't you taking take a knee for gender inequality, or why aren't you taking a knee for, let's say, for wealth inequality? Don't you know?" And we're gonna talk about that in a second as well.
Oh yeah, people cleaning off the graffiti that was there.
Yeah. Then, of course, there's this clip, and this is another example of might, but I'd say it's the proper might, because believe it or not, you know, there's this meme online of the rooftop Koreans. You know, when the trees speak the Vietnamese, when the trees start speaking Vietnamese, when the roof starts speaking Korean. Play it. Yeah. Look at that ghetto grip with a freaking AR.
Oh, good grief.
Play that clip. And this is a guy who broke into a store.
You robbed my store. You think I can play with you?
He ain't gonna play with you.
You motherfucker!
He'll kill you, GI.
All that shit coming out!
He'll kill you, GI. I swear.
You break my window, right? You robbed my store!
Yeah. And I'll be frank with you. You know, I feel the guy. I absolutely feel the guy. The guy has rage in him. My God. I will say this though: don't ever point the gun at him like that. That you're gonna, yeah, you'll kill him at that range because you don't need to have good accuracy. You just need to be able to hit him. But at the same time, the guy probably could have just grabbed the gun, pulled it down, and you pulled his entire weight and took the gun from you. It could have happened, and you know, thank God it didn't. But I'll tell you, it's getting bad. I mean, even my freaking, you know, even my boss at work, he's saying he's gonna get a gun. You know, my Sunday school, they're thinking about getting a gun. You know, my godparents, they're thinking about getting a gun. I would advise
Tim Pool's getting a gun.
Tim Pool apparently is a lucky ducky, and you know,
well, thanks to Steven Crowder, but yeah.
Well, he's lucky in the sense that I think he's getting like a M400, I believe, which is basically a 6-hour like high-end AR-15. He's getting himself a very nice, a very, very good rifle for next to nothing. Wolfwind Prepper says, "I'd rather see Americans find their balls than having posed militaries on the street." Yeah, dude, that's great and all. Here's the issue: they're talking about abolishing the police, and we're gonna get into magic here, because the truth be told is there's a lot of magic at work in this world currently. One of such magic that is working, if you want to see a perfect example of magic, there are two different types of magicians. There are those who use magic in the sense of, sophistry and lies, looking at you, Dugan. And then there are people out there who use magic to try to govern and trying to control the world. And those people are lawmen. People, for the longest time, I hated the lawmen. And now I have ambivalence towards them. And it's because I understand they carry two weapons on them, the pen and the sword. We all see the Glocks. We all see their AR-15s and their control carbines. But when they leave Like they're talking about now, I believe it's in Minneapolis, of abolishing the police. No more reforms, but they're going to have communal, how should you say it? Community policing. Which again, I'm all for. I'm all for that. That's good. That's great. Here's the problem: if there's a murder in your communities, who are you gonna call? Are you gonna call the police? They're not there anymore. Will there be detectives still? I don't think so. I mean, that's part of the police force.
As of 3 hours ago, and from the New York Times, Minneapolis will dismantle its police force. Council members pledge.
You know, I will. Minneapolis is in Minnesota, right? Isn't that where Ilhan Omar is from?
Maybe. Let's see, where is she from?
Let's see. Because I'll tell you this: Ilhan Omar, Elon brotherfucker Omar, she's loving this. The biggest problem with the abolishment of the police is you're going to start seeing, a bunch of Muslims show up, and I'm going to have to talk to Lloyd about that again.
Minnesota.
Yeah, she loves this because then she gets to have the Muslims show up, and the Muslims are willing to kill. If you like drink alcohol, they're probably going to try to recruit a bunch of people. This is how you get an insurrection. This is how you get Sharia law in the United States. You basically cuck the police to the point where they are incapable of doing their duties, incapable of it. Now, granted, I am of the opinion that the police should definitely work with the militias, and there should be training similar to, I'd say, case law training. There should be there should be a physical test, and then there should be a mental test for the people who are in the militias to join and work with the police.
Do you happen to know what district George Floyd was killed in?
I do not know. I know that
I noticed that the 5th Congressional District that Ilhan Omar is part of has basically right on top of Minneapolis. So, did it actually happen in her district?
It may have. But I'll tell you this, the real question that a lot of people are asking is, all these districts are controlled, all these supposed racist cities are controlled by Democrats. So how are you going to get rid of them? How do you get rid of these people? 1 second. Ottocon's contacting me.
Well, I mean, it is kind of fitting that all these horrible police brutality events are happening in the very blue states and in the very blue counties.
Well, yeah. And to go with the Magick, to add insult to injury, we're gonna get into Magick. I think I had too many examples of might for a second, but let's go into Magick, because there are people out there who will absolutely lie about what's going on. Case in point, another example from Black Pilled. This woman, this is an example of a little hustler, a liar. And what she's trying to, let me just say this, the easiest way to defeat these magic propagandist type of people is understand what they're trying to do. They're not hexing you. They're just trying to vex you and get under your skin. This fucking woman, and I actually looked this woman up. Apparently she is a witch, or at least she's a wannabe witch. Personally, she's like a Jedi who during the Fallen Order. She's nothing special. All her magic and glamour don't work. It's bullshit. But to give you an example, this is the most lazy spell casting I've ever seen in my life. Most lazy form of sophistry. Like, this is the type of shit that just listen to what she's saying. Just listen to it.
A lot of you guys have been asking me if witches are going to hex the police, if we're going to hex the government, if we're going to hex the cops who killed George Floyd. Your answer is, we're already doing it. We're already working behind the scenes. We're already doing protection spells, curses, hexes. We are already...
I hate to dash your hopes and disenchant you, but unfortunately, pause it. It's fine. You're not doing anything. You're nothing more than a couch potato or a armchair activist. You're literally sitting in your room, navel gazing, and writing ugly Betty fan fiction. That's what you do. You don't do shit. If you were to go up to somebody, capture a cop, and take a ceremonial knife, and rip out his heart, that's something. Okay, it may not be the ideal outcome, and I don't advocate violence towards anybody, but that is something. This is the biggest problem I have. Ooh, yeah, it's too spooky for me too, man. Too spooky for me too, Wolf. But in all honesty, these people, like, I'd rather have these people than have the rioters, because these people are the type of people who are so full of their own shit that they will recontextualize reality and say, well, that was me. That wasn't actual, a series of events that were set place by real people in the real world acting upon reality. That was an example of bullshit, magic. And I'll be keeping an eye on this one as well, because I think I'm going to get a lot of good, let's just say that I'm going to get a lot of goat milk out of this bitch. I'm going to milk the little cunt for everything she's worth.
About voodoo?
But in other forms of magic, apparently James Franco is a fucking pedophile.
What?
Yeah. James, he's hanging out with the spirit cooking girl. The for whatever reason, I don't know how this woman is staying afloat in her career, but she's staying afloat. First she shows up with Epstein, then she shows up with Bill Gates and his little virtual reality art show, and now she's hanging out with Franco. I'm really asking myself, who the hell is this woman, and why is she popping up among the elites? Like, I remember James Franco in the movie. Believe it or not, he actually was in the movie. The Wicker Man. He was there and he was like hitting on Lily Sobieski in the very end of the film, right? Or she was hitting on him. This type of crap about apparently James Franco is working with the Hollywood occultists. He's one of them.
I just can't think of what you could do with a 17-year-old fan. And having to pay you to figure out the way. 17-year-old fan. Ooh, I'll call James Franco. Clap along if you're like.
Jesus, Franco. I liked Franco. He was somebody who you knew was evil, but he was a trickster about it. Now he's just hanging out with this Eastern European whore, and I'll call it isn't she like? I don't know if she's Eastern European or she's just. I don't know. Like, isn't she like some sort of Dutch whore or something?
I have to look that up.
Yeah, I have to look it up too. But let's just say she's the same type of mindset. The difference here is she's successful. She doesn't buy into her bullshit. She at least knows it's bullshit, and that's not why she's successful. So to the woman, whoever that was, I don't even know the chick's name.
Mariana
Abramovic. Abramovic, yeah, Maria Abramovic, the girl who basically was hanging out with the spirit cooking individuals during was it the Clinton administration, the supposed pedophile ring. Apparently, James Franco is with these freaking cultists. The elites are working together. Ugh. Yeah, and I don't know if this is propaganda or if it's just people using the cover of occultism to hide their intent. Because let's be frank, even the CIA and KGB, SVR, all the intelligence organizations are by definition an occult organization because they're hidden. They don't tell people what they're doing, and that's all it takes to be an occult organization. Technically, I'm an occult organization as well. But, just let you know, keep an eye on those people, keep an eye on this woman, and let's move on to the next scary thing. Ooh, this will be interesting. So apparently, I said before, and I'll say it again, the mayor of San Jose has basically cucked to the fascists. They've cucked to the freaking BLM people. They've cucked for them. They've sold out their principles, and now they're basically the mayor from well, they're the mayor from what is it? The leader of the town in Red Dawn. He bent the knee for these people. In fact, he actually says, I believe he typed in Control F and then knee. I took a knee. This is from the second paragraph. Yesterday, I walked out of City Hall to stand with my fellow community members in protest. I listened to several who shared their pain they were experienced throughout their lives. I took a knee with them to express a simple message. I hear you. I may only hear them imperfectly, of course, as a man growing up isolated by white privilege. This is the mayor of San Jose, ladies and gentlemen. And not having to fear a police officer's excessive use of force. Again, look at the crime statistics. Disproportionately speaking, whites are more targeted than blacks, but that's mostly because we have a white majority in this country. Okay, and even then, excessive force. I cannot fully appreciate the experience of many in my neighborhoods. Bullshit. Yes, you can. When asked to speak, I took the megaphone to thank them for sharing their righteous outrage. Again, this guy is not going to be here next year. If I will vote, I could probably beat this guy in an election. This guy's this guy right here is my mayor. I could literally walk to his fucking office from my place, and I have multiple times. This guy, I'll never understand, why do these people kowtow to these people? Don't be frightened of them. But yeah, so this gentleman here has basically turned over to the mob, and this is the reason why on Monday we had 200 Antifa Black Bloc BLM people. I'll just call them leftists. Now we have about 1,000 strong. Last time I checked, and they're growing. Because, if, these people, they get emboldened. And one of the things I oftentimes tell people, I was talking to a friend of mine on the podcast prior to this. Apparently people from my prior work watch my podcast and they like it. And I thank them for listening. Thank them. They told me that, I told them, and I've told this to people all the time, never apologize to these people. Never apologize to the SJW. Never apologize to the leftists. It will never turn out good in your favor. It will never ever do it, because they see, they don't see apologies as a form of trying to reconcile one's differences and one's flaws. They see it as a example of you being guilty. They see you as the type of person who could be a pushover. They see you as a confession of being a witch. That's what you're dealing with these people. So I'm very disappointed, and you will not be getting my vote this year, Mr. Sam Liccardo. You're not getting my freaking vote. You're not going to get my vote. You've sold out your people. You sold out your nation and your tribe. You are a cuck. And in fact, dare I say it, you're a house nigger in every sense of the word. You can't stand on your own 2 feet without pandering to the people who don't have your best interests. That is the definition of a house nigger. And I'll be honest with you, as somebody who was told as growing up as a child, you can cuss, you just can't cuss at each other. This is constructive criticism. Okay? If you look at the words that I'm saying and the context I'm saying it, you'll understand that, yeah, you are a house nigger. And that's not a racial thing. That is a statement of fact. You're no different than a cuck. It's synonymous of being a cuck. Because the same type of mindset of somebody who wants to be free, yet is reliant on somebody who does not have their own best interests at heart. You are basically doing the same thing that they're doing. The same thing. And now we're going to move on with our lives, as everyone else should. But before we do that, a little bit more of Magick to prove the whole nonsense of well, let me just say this. I know I'm going back and forth here and there, but I wanted to show this in regards to the whole Maria Abramovich thing. You could see, good old Franco hanging out with a head of somebody with there's blood all over the place, and naked people. There's a lot of naked women. Again, I don't think we're going to get blocked for this. But Abramovich and Franco, apparently this bitch is, I don't know who she's hexing and who she's vexing to get into these positions of power. But it's almost as if, like, she's playing the media against it. Like, there's the old notion there's no such thing as bad press. So you should just ignore the people who are trying to gain attention. I would say that the problem here is this fucking cunt. She's managed to make everything political. She's somewhere between, like, if she was only in Tinseltown, like in Hollywood, we could ignore her. The fact that she's hanging out with people who are alleged pedophiles is a genius career move, because she's going to stay relevant. As long as she's staying relevant, as long as we're giving her attention, like right now, she's going to stay relevant. So I'm not going to talk about her until there's actual, crimes being leveled against her. But I wanted to just bring this up specifically because apparently Franco is somebody I have to not. Whenever I go to a movie theater, which is not often, I haven't actually gone to movie theaters in like. I think the last movie I went to go see was The Joker, I believe. That was the first time in like 3 years I went to go see the theaters. I'm not going to any film with Franco in it. I refuse to do that now. You've chosen your side, good sir. Now I'm going to choose mine. But now to go to the sophistry part of this segment. Let's see if we can pull it up here. Alrighty, here we go. This is an example of sophistry. Now, for those of you out there who know Saul Alinsky and the rules of radicals that he talks about, he's often spoken about, power ain't what you have, but it's also what people think you have. So if you could, feint being a victim, if you could have people, I think at one point he talks about using farts as a weapon of political dissonance, where you have everybody basically eat a bunch of crappy food, and then they go and they fart up the place, and then people will say, well, "Get out of here! You guys stink." Oh, you're talking about us as we're black or something? You just hate us because we're black. This gentleman here, this cop, has my eternal respect. He didn't kneel for anybody. Now, oftentimes when I talk about people kneeling, I will never kneel for a cop. I'll never kneel for a cop. I'll never kneel for the president. I will never kneel for a king or queen, especially these people. But I want people, just start the clip from the beginning and play it. I want to hear what people have to say.
Can we pray? Can we pray then? Can we pray? Can we pray? How about that? Can we take a knee and pray? You guys can kneel. I'm not just.
Yeah, pray. Get on your knees.
I'll pray for you. I'll pray for you right now. I'll pray for you. Appreciate that. Hey, everyone, take a knee. Take a knee. Everybody, take a knee. Take a knee. Take a knee.
And by the way, they're using religion as a weapon. So
a black man kneeling before a white man, that can't be good optics.
It can't be exactly. But here's the thing: they're praying. So the real question then, here's what I would do: say, "Oh, he was praying for me, though. I didn't want to do it because I know I don't show solidarity. God, I hate that word. With the BLM movement, because I know this is about dirty cops, and cops. Let's just be frank with ourselves. Maybe there needs to be an early retirement for a lot of these cops. I'm not suggesting death. I'm suggesting that the mental strain on these people. They could be physically fit all they want, but the mental requirements to be an officer are, I'd say, too low right now. I can't be an officer, even though I promised an officer at my former job that I would go down there to the police station and help them when shit like this goes off. But keep playing it.
Is there an opportunity to show us your people?
Bend the knee, bigot. That's right. I have more respect for you in that regard. Hug him. Hug him. Hug him. I'd rather them hug each other than bend the knee. Hug him is much better, a much better term. But the problem here is that these people are manipulating you. Bending the knee is something that Ned Stark was supposed to do to Joffrey, and when Joffrey didn't get what he wanted, spoiler alert, Ned Stark ended up in the dungeon. This is what happens when you pander to the crowd. Don't do it. Don't be the guy who does it. Don't be that guy. Don't be the guy who kneels before Zod. Okay? But, going back to the whole sophistry, we look at, let's see. Oh, here we go. Back to the whole how should you say it? The whole San Jose, Californian mayor. This is an example of him explaining why he took the fucking knee. Play the clip. We're almost done, ladies and gentlemen. I like to keep this within about an hour or so, 30 minutes. Play it.
I'm trying to get it open.
Yep.
My mouse is acting weird. Time to buy a new mouse.
Hey man, if you get a new mouse, may I suggest get the Neon Rider Steel Series Sensei Neon Rider. That's actually a very good mouse. I'm gonna have to get myself a new mouse eventually as well. I might have to get myself a new mic because my mic was acting up. But play it from the beginning.
Today, a memorandum that is co-signed by several of my colleagues, Vice Mayor Chappie Jones, Councilmember Magdalena Carrasco, Councilmember Raul Perales, and Councilmember Lund Diep. And We are going to be having these items heard on Tuesday and probably subsequent days as well, because we know this is going to be ongoing work. This is direction, and I'll just read directly from the memo to let you know what's coming. First is to focus on the uses of force of the San Jose Police Department over the last week or so since the protests in the wake of the homicide of George Floyd. Obviously, there have been a lot of concerns here locally about when police have.
I want people to understand that this whole George Floyd thing took place specifically in Minneapolis. This all took place in Minneapolis. This did not take place in California. This did not take place in the West Coast. This took place in the middle of the country. Yet this cuck, this fucking cuck, has decided to make this a West Coast, San Jose, Silicon Valley issue. This guy is like things that are happening across the world that should not affect the average citizen are affecting policy in my hometown. This is disgusting. Keep playing.
Used tear gas, when they've used rubber bullets, whether or not there was an excessive use of force, whether there was a video capturing a clip capturing an officer that may have engaged in some misconduct. Well, we want to allow the police department to inform the council about what are in the standards in the duty manual today that police officers have to follow. And then let's have a very open discussion about what circumstances happened, for example, on Friday or Saturday, where we had much of the conflict and a lot of arrests. What were the circumstances that the police felt justified their use of force in those cases? That is, their use of tear gas, the use of rubber bullets, or anything else. It will help inform the council and I think the public as to what the decision-making was, aid in transparency. So at least we are starting with a common understanding about what happened and why, and then we can discuss what reforms may be necessary. So we're certainly encouraging.
Why do we need reforms? This happened in Minnesota. This is in Elon Omar's area. Why are you fucking doing it? Why are any of us doing it? And for those of you who need to know what was going down in the instance in question, I have a video on my channel called San Jose George Floyd Riots 5. It's dated on the 29th. This is during that time of the problem in question. If you just play this clip real quick, just speed through it if you can, Luke. There are dumpsters on fire, and dumpsters in plural. Okay, these motherfuckers. I don't know what it is with Antifa, but these fuckers have like a pathological hatred of trash. Like they keep targeting trash. They keep on targeting, dumpsters and what have you, to the point where the dumpster is becoming a freaking objective for these people. They set fire to like 3 or 4 dumpsters. They busted into an Amazon locker. They were gonna bust into Bank of America as well as Chase, to the point in which I have freaking, the Target where I go shop in some cases, they've boarded up. There are businesses that have boarded up all their fucking windows. Okay? At first it was you have to wear a mask because of the COVID crap. Now they're boarding up the windows. My fucking great city that I grew up in is looking more and more like fucking Detroit by the fucking day. And there's me. This is footage of me going into these places. And guess what? Why are you going to these places? I'm going to these places specifically because someone has to. Someone has to report on what's going on. And look at all that shit. This is all crap that you find on Amazon. And a lot of lotions and shit like that. A lot of toiletries, and a few electronics here and there. But they all took the electronics. They don't need any of the other junk. And of course, there's fire and crap. And I found a few rubber bullets on the ground, and they're not like little tiny rubber bullets. They're like little. They're like the little 40 millimeter standard NATO cartridges for grenade launchers. That's what they look like. And it's getting bad out here. It's getting bad. And when you have your Bible study people talking about getting guns, we're in troubling fucking times. But be it as it may, our police chief, Chief Eddie Garcia, he's going to address this protest, and I really do believe that cuck police officer is going to go along with whatever the cuck. Well, let's just say Double D is going to go do whatever our glorious leader of mayor is going to follow. So Double D Garcia, Eddie Double D Garcia, he's responding in a press conference. He fires back against critics, saying officers endured an onslaught of violence. Now, I wasn't there for that, but I do know that I have videos on my channel. I could upload them later on, but I haven't done it specifically because I wanted to censor the guy's face, of people who've gotten shot by police officers with the rubber bullets and what have you. And it's not that bad of a wound, okay? Like, the easiest way to get into some of these Antifa places, and believe it or not, this is kind of primitive, give them cigarettes. Just pull out and smoke and start smoking with them. They'll say, "You got any weed?" Because I've been asked many times by Antifa, "Do you have weed?" "No, I don't got any weed. I'm sorry, man. All I got is tobacco." "Want tobacco?" "Okay, cool." "Yeah, so capitalism, man. It's going down." That's what you do. That's how you get close to these people. You give them cigarettes. They're like third world police. They're like third world police. Play the clip.
Cover of peaceful protests.
Advertisement.
Fucking advertisements. Well, let the advertisement play. Let the advertisement play. It's all good.
And this is on Chrome, so even they can't get around. This is on a Brave, so even they can't get around this one.
Will you take the knee, Dashing Rogue? No, I will not. I'd rather die standing up.
Addressing some of the events that unfolded in San Jose over the past week, the city defended its police department's response to those they call agitators who were present at other...
Why is that guy waving in a Mexican flag?
Because La Raza, dude. We're in California. And by the way, I have nothing against other people having flags. I have everything against... I have everything against... what is it? I have everything against one flag, like let's say Mexico or Canada or Britain's flag or Japan's flag or Korea's flag above the United States flag. There's certain, civics that are not taught in schools. One of such is that if you have a flagpole, you can have any number of flags on it any time, given, the height of the pole or what have you. But the American flag is always on top. On American soil, the American flag is above Mexican flags. It's above the let's say Nicaraguan, or it's above the Japanese flag. It's a matter of civics. That's what it's about. You can have your flag all you want. I have a fucking pirate flag in my room. That doesn't mean, but the American flag will always be above it. Keep playing it.
Otherwise peaceful protests.
We have seen too many episodes.
Otherwise peaceful protests. Although were these San Jose protests okay?
They were fine. Nobody got looted, but I will say this: I have a couple of friends and who run a game shop downtown, where all these protests happened. I told them exactly what was going to happen. They were wondering, why are people putting up flags and they were wondering why they were putting up flags and posters saying, "We stand with Black Lives Matter, fuck racism, we love equality," and all these other slogans in the front of their storefront, so they don't get damaged by the police, by the protesters. They're doing the same thing that they were doing in Berkeley, how they have all these little, leftist platitudes in their storefront, specifically so they don't get targeted. They're living in fear. This is like protection money.
Exploited the cover of peaceful protests to commit violent acts, to destroy the city in various ways.
The protests, which began Friday afternoon, were meant to call attention to the death of George Floyd, as well as police brutality across the nation.
This is what's so annoying. No one ignores this. No one was ignoring the death of George Floyd. No one.
No one. Even some of the police officers, I've spoken for some of these police officers, like, Donut Operator, the people like Mike the Cop. Those are people who I legitimately have respect for. I may not always agree with them, but that just goes with the territory of being human, and a human-to-human interaction. Every single cop I have encountered has basically said this whole George Floyd thing, basically told basically was a shit show. And they said that it's going to hurt me because now I have to watch out for people mistaking me for those bad cops. And
they're treating this killing with the same level of ambiguity as Trayvon Martin was, and that isn't even done by a cop.
Well, most of these people who are just giving the platitudes of gratitudes and attitudes of platitudes, all they're doing is they're just doing it because they want to loot. They want an excuse to riot. They want an excuse to loot. Red Zodiac, we Antifa America now? No, not yet. Now if I still have one in the chamber, will you take the knee? Red Zodiac says no, never will take the knee. DZDs, an Ed and Eddie reference on Dashing Rogues podcast. Yes, Ed and Eddie is one of the few. It's the turning point for a lot of Cartoon Network shows. I can remember that the big thing why everyone hated Ed and Eddie, especially my parents, they didn't like them using the word idiot. And going back, yeah, Ed and Eddie was like the first show that was like G or rated Y7 or whatever the hell the rating might be, that started using curse words that we would normally say are not, curse words. But they started using them. And I guess that's an example of people growing up and the audience growing up to a certain degree. But yeah, Ed and Eddie is pretty based. Red Zodiac says, "Why won't you take the knee? The police and the military are. The police and the military are following orders. I'm a free agent. I'm a free man. I do what I please." It is an excuse to when Prepper says it's an excuse to attempt to flip the table that is the America. Yeah, exactly. We're already seeing segregationist policies being pushed out there. Those again, I'm not going to repeat the same thing that everyone else is saying. Go watch Tim Pool. Go watch any of these other people. Don't watch a Roaming Millennial. She's fucked up. But go watch anybody else. Go watch, Andrew Clavin. Go watch, Ben Shapiro if you have to. Everyone's saying the same fucking thing. This is fucked up. And these people who are gravely over-exaggerating, they're exaggerating to the point where we're getting, precautionary measures for things that have not yet happened. We're seeing people advocate for, the hiring only blacks, making sure that blacks get, I think it was Uber Eats that said blacks get priority over black businesses get priority for delivery as opposed to white businesses. Again, yeah, I can pull that up for you if you want. Holy Mystic says the last movie they did was very interesting. I don't know what movie that was.
Ed and Eddie, I think.
Which one?
Ed and Eddie.
Oh yeah, the one where they had his brother. Keep playing that clip. Keep playing the clip we have. I'm gonna get the Uber Eats link.
However, there were moments of violence. Police Chief Eddie Garcia providing a snippet of what officers saw on the front lines.
There were reports of bottles of urine being thrown at officers. Several suspects drove at officers with vehicles at high rates of speed, either threatening or attempting to strike them before fleeing. And multiple officers were struck on their person, helmet, face shield with various objects.
Of the 180 protest-related arrests made by SJPD, nearly half were San Jose residents.
It was loud, it was fast, it was violent. There's no other way to describe it. In 21 years, I've never been in a snapshot like that where so much chaos was raining down at one time.
Police have come under fire for using tear gas and rubber foam baton rounds during the protests. Raj Jayadev from Silicon Valley Debug, a local social justice organization, says he saw some officers aim directly at peaceful protesters.
Oh, he's just a communist. He's just a fucking communist. And, let me just say this right now, ladies and gentlemen. The greatest trick ever pulled was social justice. Legitimately. You don't have to define anything. Take it from a guy like me. I can't get a gun in California. That's a social injustice. All right. The people who grew up without parents, that's social injustice. How do you fix it? Can you fix it? You can't. There are certain things you're just going to have to take a stride. Life is a contact sport. Go, if they punch you, punch them back twice as hard. Keep playing the clip.
Way you could characterize the actions of the police department as appropriate by any stretch of the imagination. And I think there has to be some real accountability over the violence of the officers.
The chief is encouraging the community to report any instances of wrongdoing and says all complaints.
You're blocking the road, you jerks.
Will be investigated.
Police departments alone will not be able to right all the collective wrongs. being expressed on our streets. But we must acknowledge our responsibility to effect change and the urgency in which we must do so.
In San Jose, Chris Wynn, ABC 7 News.
And to follow up with the Uber Eats, this is from Fox News, but it basically is the same thing. Uber Eats stops charging delivery fees to Black-owned restaurants. This is racial segregation. I don't care if they did it to whites. I don't care if they did it to Mexicans. This is wrong. This is legitimately fucking wrong what they're doing to people. They literally are turning this in. Like, I want to say, if we don't stop this, if we don't push back against this, we will have South Africa. We will have it where the whites can do nothing right. Not saying that all whites are good. Simply saying that whites, they're being demonized, disproportionately speaking. This is becoming like South Africa. I want people to understand that. And I'll be frank with you. I will fight racism. I will fight it when I see it. But the thing is that the racism, like the racists never get anywhere. They don't get anywhere. So Uber Eats stops charging delivery to fees to African-owned restaurants or Black-owned restaurants. And then, by the way, it's not always some of these blacks. They're not descendants of slaves. They're people who come over here, like from Somalia and places like that. They never were slaves. So it's immediately beating the whole institution. Uber said it will make changes to its ride-hailing app, an Uber Eats delivery service to support Black-owned businesses. An email to customers late on Thursday, CEO Darna, I cannot pronounce that name, said Uber Eats will promote Black-owned businesses on its app and that the service will not charge delivery fees to restaurants for the remainder of the year. Uber also offered a discontinued rate rides to Black-owned small businesses who have been hit hard by COVID. This is racism. This is legitimate racism right here. Like freaking Wolfwin Prepper said, and I'm not going to take him out of context, but this is sort of what he said. They're flipping the table on America. They literally are trying to flip the board and say, no, I'm the winner. I can't be racist. You guys are racist. It's all about one-upsmanship. It's all about tribal shit. It's according they're basically they're trying to help Black businesses that were hit by COVID. I wish that the lives of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and Breonna Taylor, and the countless others who others weren't so violently cut short. The 51-year-old CEO said, "I wish that institutional racism and police violence gives rise to doesn't cause their deaths." So the CEO pledged that the Uber will continue to crack down on discrimination, harassment, and racism on its platforms and will hold its users accountable to these standards of basic respect and human decency. Sophistry. Again, more sophistry, more lies, more bullshit, and more deception.
Your knight was at King's Rook 6. No, my bishop was at King's Rook 6. My knight was at Queen 5. No.
Yes,
it was,
yes.
No,
yes,
in your dreams, your knight was at Queen 5.
I was sitting right.
I saw right.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. Now your knight is at Refrigerator 5.
Oh, yeah, that's real mature.
Yeah, well, who comes out a winner? Me. Griffin once again.
That's what that is.
Undefeated champion of the world.
What's even worse is, there are people out there who they don't care about George Floyd. That the police care more about George Floyd than the fucking protesters do in some cases. And it's sad because, again, the whole fight between, I don't even say a fight, it would be a feud between me and Beckloff is at what point do we start cracking down on the police? I'm one of the people who's pro law and order because I know what evil lurks on the world stage. The Russians wanting to take over Europe, and we got the fucking Chinese who want to take over all of Asia and acting really, really big and hard with their freaking navy. But this type of crap with a New York City man who has threatened to burn down the Diamond District, that's where the Jews are, for making terrorist threats, he didn't get charged with it. And in fact, if you want to go even further on this, by the way, I'm going to link this in the description right now. This will also be linked.
He's incompetent. We are losing a tremendous amount of property. We're seeing people damaged and hurt seriously, and pretty soon we're going to lose some lives.
Look at that
Keep
blazing fire. Oh my
Yeah, look at the
goodness.
fucking fire. Look at the fire. Look at the world burn.
You see that in movies, but not in real life. Like,
Yeah.
wow.
This man doesn't get out of the way and let someone activate the police department.
And joining me right now, once
playing.
Oh boy.
again is Rudy Giuliani. And Rudy, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks very much for joining us. No signs
see you,
that de
Maria.
Blasio is going to step down. Is New York safe?
No.
No. It's safer. I mean, he did react to what I said and what the governor said, and a number of other people. It wasn't just me and he did activate the police somewhat, but still with a lot of things that aren't being done, including things. I mean, some of the things he did obviously angered the left, but some of the things that he could do. For example, why isn't he using policemen on horseback? I use policemen on horseback to end crime in Times Square.
Why are you using policemen on horseback to get on motorcycles? Legitimately. But be that as it may, I wanted to see if I could find the original clip of this. Because here's the thing that's so damn scary about this. I'm going to link the next clip to it. Don't worry. I'm doing this on the fly, guys. Just give me some time. Because there are certain things that just don't make any sense at all. But here's the clip. Well, this is a clip that Luke is currently showing. This clip is basically LA is not going to charge any of these criminals or any of these protesters with crimes. They're not going to be charged. There's a fucking lockdown, a curfew in effect currently right now. I can't leave my house right now because of the freaking curfew. All right. It was supposed to be lifted, but this type of shit's going to make people want to stay in their house willfully.
And the question should be, what policies are we going to enact to make people feel safe in their own communities? You know, I'm a leader of this FTP movement. It means a lot of things. It can mean free the people. It can mean for the people. It could also mean fire to property. You know, and that's very possible. Tonight I'm leading a demonstration.
Oh, that's comforting.
This son of a bitch is a sophist. He literally knows that. He knows what's what. This guy is not just some ignorant idiot. This guy is a legitimate, like, I will kill you and I'm consciously aware of what I'm doing type of person. Keep playing it.
From Barclays Center at 6 p.m. to City Hall. And that's the first stop. And we're hoping de Blasio and Cuomo come out and talk to us and give the youth some direction. But if they don't, the next stop is the Diamond District. And gasoline, thanks to Trump, is awfully cheap. So we're giving them a chance right now to do the right thing. But my name is Ace Burns, 2020.
Thank you, Ace. Thank you, appreciate it. So you heard that.
What the heck was that?
That was what we call a terrorist threat, a credible terrorist threat, by the way.
That was Joker level of terrorism.
I'm gonna if you
I'm
don't come out and
half, and it's cheap.
That was Joker level, wasn't it? It kind of was. Holy shit. That and the Diamond District, for those of you out there, like, I don't know what it is. Like in New York, especially, the fucking Jews and the blacks, there's something going on between them. Like I let's see if I can pull back a couple of months ago. I think back in like 2019, there were like videos of a girl just going up to a Jewish guy, pummeling him in the face and saying, I hated them because they're Jews. I don't like them because they're Jews. They are flat out anti-Semitism. Okay? Why, oh why are the blacks immediately going over to the Jewish, like why? Do they think that the Jews are the problem? Do they, don't get me wrong, Chris Cuomo and what the hell's what the hell's the mayor's name?
Cuomo, what's her name?
Cuomo, Falarco? No, not Falarco. What the hell's her name? The point is, there are a lot of Jews in New York City. Are they like racially profiling people and holding everybody accountable? Like, group
Andrew
justice.
Andrew Cuomo, that's it.
Yeah. Are they now going after, do they think that they're Jewish or something? Like they're going after all the Jews now? Like, these people are thinking only in tribes. They're only thinking in terms of tribalism and what have you. I want to say these people, like, the world is falling. Like, everything that my parents are telling me as a kid is now considered hate speech. And I'm not, and that that should not surprise you because, sometimes your parents have bigoted ideas. They're a product of their time, what have you. But the stuff that you really think ought not to be considered racist, ought not to be considered bigoted or what have you, is ultimately being used against us. It's being used. And people are talking about outside influence like China. I want to show people what I believe is going to happen if we don't get our shit in order. I want to show people what because I'm going to wrap this up real quick, Luke. What were we going to say?
Oh, needless to say, these people are not post-racial.
They're not post-racial. They don't want it to be post-racial. Oftentimes, the biggest issue I have found is that these people, the moment they become post-racial, they have to own their own. They can no longer play the victim. They can no longer cry wolf about racism. They have to stand on their own. It's very much, well, actually, it's like this. I'll see if I can find it for you. This is from, speaking of, Conan the Barbarian. You ever seen that movie, Conan the Barbarian?
Oh, yeah. Oh, wait, the new one or the old one?
The new one, the old one.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, do you know the ending where they killed James Earl Jones?
Uh-huh.
I want to. Have you ever listened to what he had to say? What James Earl Jones had to say
about?
Well, just play the clip. I want you to understand, and I'll link it in the description as well for those people because again, I have a general form of how I do this podcast, and then I continue.
You are children of the water. They will wash away all that has gone before. In your hand, you hold my light, the gleam in the eye of Set. This flame will burn away the darkness, burn you away to paradise.
And for the context, for those who are watching, this is basically Thulsa Doom's character, which is James Earl Jones' character, telling Conan. He's telling him what's going to happen after he kills him because he knows he's going to die. But I want people to really pay attention and take this into consideration when you think of the white and the black relationships, like the slave mentality, if you will. Play it. Because Conan was a slave. I believe it's about 30 seconds.
He sees him.
Yep. Listen. Play it.
My child, you have come to me, my son. Who now is your father if it is not me? Who gave you the will to live? I am the wellspring from which you flow. When I am gone, you will have never been. What will your world be without me? My son.
Pause it. And the whole point of that scene is basically that Conan dedicated his entire life to revenge. He got his muscles. He learned skill sets of how to be a thief, how to be a warrior. And it got to the point where he had control of Thulsa Doom. And he was driven to kill Thulsa Doom, to kill the motherfucker. And eventually he's like, well, once you kill me, what are you going to do next? You dedicated your entire life to revenge. Your whole skill set is dedicated to this purpose. And once you kill me, it's going to be over. So it's very similar to how, the African-American community, they can't let go of racism. They cannot let go of it. They need it. You could say whatever you want about, the rape of your ancestors and what have you. But the notion of racism is raping the African-American community to the point where the white guy, or whoever that might be, he doesn't have to be a white guy. It's just the ethereal Anglo, the WASP, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, is ruling their minds. It's ruling them, and they can never get rid of the chains. They have to lie to themselves and say, I'm empowered, I'm strong, ooh, ooh, ooh. But they're not. they're weak because they can't break the chains, because the moment they break the chains, they are now accountable for themselves. And what is underneath all that crap? What's nothing? Because they have to start living their lives, and they can't do that. They can't do it, so they avoid it. They have to go hunt down the spook that is racism. They have to go hunt down the spook.
Coming back like a fucking 100 times. I am so mad. I am so fucking mad at these people. They don't.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, they can't. There are racists out there. That was Richard B. Spencer right there. These people, they don't know how to differentiate. They don't know how to check and actually know who's the racist and who isn't. And even then, most of these racists they're just destructive people. They can't kill the past. They can't kill the past, but they can acknowledge it and they can look towards the future. But the problem is that, don't get me wrong, George Washington Carver, a man who grew up a slave and then eventually became a free man and had to, pull himself up by his bootstraps. He had legitimate issues you can call out and complain about. These blacks, they have so many good things given to them. So many good things that are just given. I mean, the ability to get a fucking, on-demand clothing. I was looking at Uber. I just discovered Uber Eats as well as, DoorDash. And I will tell you, as somebody who likes the idea of just drop shipping, you just drop it off to you same day. That to me is something very powerful. I would love it. I would love to have something like that. But yeah, and Conan, of course, for those of you who need the spoilers, he beheads him. He kills him, ending that chapter of his life. And Conan was a slave. He was sold into slavery. His mother and his wife, his mother and father were killed. But I bring this up because I'm going to a Catholic rally tomorrow at 12 because I'm going to do it for my lunch break. And I even told they have this weird notion that they have to trust in God. And I say, oh, Conan, of beasts and men you cannot trust, but this knife you can trust, the sword you can trust. And I show them my knife, and of course they laugh and giggle. But in the end of the day, none of them are prepared, especially since one of them has a MAGA hat. And I'll just say it: San Jose is occupied territory. It might as well become Berkeley now. But my main concern is not the protesters. My main concern are things like this. Show the clip, Luke, and we're ending it soon here. Because maybe I'm gonna do another video next week, and I'm gonna talk about actual grievances the blacks have and how we could ultimately get through it together. Because believe me, there are legitimate concerns. But what I'm scared of is while we're fighting the police are fighting us, and all order and all hell is breaking loose, something like this will happen. You can mute it, by the way. And there are people in this world who actively want to see the United States fall, whether it be the Islamicists the Muslims, whether it be the Chinese. And by the way, this movie is the Red Dawn part, the 2011 version of it, where they have North Korea, but we all know it's China. This was supposed to be China, but the reason it's no longer the Chinese is because the Chinese, deep down, they didn't like it. They panned it. So the media critics and the movie theaters, they changed it in edit and post. So people want to talk about, oh, the Jews are changing Hollywood. They control Hollywood. No, the Chinese control Hollywood. We actually have evidence. This is an example of that. And then, they're paratrooping in, warriors and soldiers to fight, to take over everything. Again, I'm going to say it again, get a gun. Hold on to it, but just don't be trigger happy with it. But at the same time, get a fucking gun. Because while we're fighting, come to find out there might be a blackout someday. Maybe some protester does something stupid and they black out, and then they use this. Then whoever it might be, the Chinese, the Japanese, the Muslims, the Russians, even, they will try to invade. They can use this political uncertainty to invade. So if the Chinese, not the Chinese, if the if the Black Lives Matter were legitimate about trying to protect the communities, they would acknowledge that the shit that they're doing, the destabilization efforts, only favor the foreign assets like the Russians or the Chinese, and they are being used for that end. I mean, people are wondering where are all the plaques of bricks coming from? Where are all these pallet of bricks and mortar and all this other crap? There's just outside of the correctional facilities in certain parts of the area. That's probably being planted by Antifa, but also it's helping the Russians. It's helping them. And we're gonna go into this clip here because this is a 9-minute video. I'm gonna end it here because I've talked about this guy before. And there's a very special part in it where they talk about destabilizing the United States. This is the Russians' plan for destabilization of the United States. It's at, I will say, 6 minutes and 40 seconds. Play it, Luke.
Is this a different clip?
This is a different clip. I will send it to you here. We've talked about this before, and I get a lot of people saying, "Yo, you're still talking about this guy." Yes, because somebody has to. Somebody has to keep an eye on these people.
So what point?
6 minutes and 40. We're going to continue from there.
6 minutes 40.
Play it.
The Kuril Islands, which were taken from them by you back in 1945 after the war, combined with an effort to spread as much anti-American propaganda as possible in the country, and Japan might soon become your friend instead, and therefore will probably allow your fleets unrestricted access into the Pacific. And finally, there's the United States itself, which probably won't just sit back and let you do all of this. You need to use your special services to infiltrate the country and use your espionage tactics to fuel as much instability, separatism, and chaos as possible. You must actively support every single extremist, isolationist, secessionist, and radical group that you can, even if the support is going to opposing groups. The goal here is simply to cause as much chaos and uncertainty as possible and keep the United States as distracted from world events and from what you're doing as possible. Anti-American sentiment and ideologies should simultaneously be encouraged and supported all across the world to sow as much global dissent with the current world order as possible, with the United States hopefully focused on more domestic problems that your spies have exacerbated. You may find the good opportunities to strike elsewhere in Europe and Asia, and your work to steadily build back Russia's lost power and influence can continue without interference. Because if the United States gets directly involved with your shenanigans, it's all probably gonna be over. The Foundations of Geopolitics sort of reads like a textbook from an alternate history or timeline. It's kind of fun imagining what the world would be like if everything discussed in the book came true. But unfortunately, the book
most of it
never been
has.
properly
Pause it
translated.
for a second. That's what I'm frightened of. I'm frightened of people like Alexander Dugin, who the book Foundation of Geopolitics, which is being used by the Russian government as a guidebook for geopolitics. That actually is being used. This guy has legitimately tried to interfere with our elections, but also has ties to people on the far right as well as the far left. We're being played against each other, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I'll be the first one to say I don't like the police. I don't hate them. I have ambivalence towards them. There needs to be reforms, and I personally think that a lot of the powers that the police are given are borderline, godlike and borderline unconstitutional. Terry frisks. I've talked about Terry frisks, how I don't like them. But one of the things I will put aside is the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I can hate the police all I want, but I'll tell you what I hate more. I hate the commissars of Russia. I hate the KGB and NKVD. I don't like them, and I don't want them coming in. And whether it be the Chinese that invade or the freaking Russians who just want to start shit so that they could take over Europe, whatever it may be, you got to be careful. You have to be safe. You have to be smart, and you have to be willing to know that you have to maintain order. We are on a spaceship. Not even on a spaceship. We're on a ship right now, and we're having a mutiny, and that mutiny is being caused by people who don't have the United States' best interests and your interests at heart. So just take care of yourself. Luke, any final thoughts before we continue? Before we
I can only think of one good clip to play at a moment like this.
Or they'll explode under... The silo doors are closed. This is suicide.
Is it done, Yuri?
No, Comrade Premier. It has only begun.
Yep, and that is from Command and Conquer Red Alert 2, which is a very good game. Kind of controversial for its time because they had the World Trade Center and you had to destroy the Pentagon in one of the Soviet missions. But yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, be good to one another, take care of one another, and remember, saving the West is a side quest.